Thank you for joining me for another episode of Quantum Relationships. I'm Lisa Jayne, your host. On the spectrum of light, we've been told by scientists that we only see a really small portion of all of the visible light. Outside of what's visible to us, we've got no idea what's going on. We don't even know that it exists. All we can see is this small spectrum, which is visible light. I think your relationships are exactly the same. What I've noticed from my own experiences and my work with others is that the wound that I had as a child, the emotional wound, sets up certain behaviors in me and certain parameters that I tend to live within most of my life. It controls the way I speak, it controls the way I show up in relationships, it controls my reactions. So often I'll have reactions where I feel helpless and I don't have any resources and I either just want to run away or I'm standing there trying to express myself and I can't manage to get out the words that actually make sense of what I'm feeling so that I can get somewhere with this conversation. Often I used to try to do that and it just ended up in friction, and so it wasn't fun. I was more inclined not to say anything than to actually try to say something, which is really not helpful. So I found myself living in a spectrum of relationship that was determined by my wound. I didn't even know there was another way to be in a relationship. And what happened was, because I was being held, if you like, in that, let's call it a paradigm of relationship, I felt like I was just going around in circles, like trying different things all the time, but never actually getting anywhere. It wasn't until I realized that there was another part of me that existed beyond my wound that I could actually tap into and I could start to access. I could show up in that. So my relationship started to transform. I started to see then the wound, because it's very hard to see the wound when you're in the wound, right? But sometimes if you give yourself some space, all of a sudden you can start to see what's going on. It wasn't about getting rid of it or stopping it or wishing it away. It was about getting to know what was happening. Getting to know what was happening in my unconscious. Getting to know what was controlling the way that I was reacting to other people and situations. Understanding why, when somebody looked like they didn't notice me, I had a feeling reaction about that. Understanding why certain things really activated me. But then not only understanding it, but getting to the point where they no longer activate me. Because I do hear that a lot. And I know a lot of my clients come to me and they say, we've done so much work on ourselves. Like, honestly, I would love $1 for the amount of people that tell me that we've done so much work on ourselves. Because we have, right? We have. We've been looking, we've been trying to find information. I did so much work on myself. I couldn't believe when I started to discover that there was a whole other world that all of the work on myself had never even indicated to me, had never even given me a glimpse of. I believe if I was trying to conceptualize that for you so that you could understand the way I see that, I believe that's because the work that we do talks to our head. The information that we learn, the knowledge that we access, it's all about using our head, thinking differently, like using our thoughts. However, this is a heart thing. This is actually about understanding your heart. That has nothing to do with your head. It's not a thinking, it's a feeling. So how do I begin to feel a different way towards my feelings? And I've discovered that that's where the solution lies. Because if I can feel a different way to my feelings, I start to break down those barriers that have been set up by my wound. I start to step outside of that little trapped place, limiting place that I used to feel like I was in. can step outside of that. And the more I step outside of that, the more I notice that the walls just go down. I don't run any of those behaviors based on my wounds. I can see clearly if I'm activated. And I have an alternative. See, I think sometimes we don't actually really know what else to do other than this. Because we've been doing this for so long, we've been running this pattern for so long, this cycle, we've been saying these similar things, we've been wanting a similar thing for so long that we don't actually know what is the alternative. So we have an alternative when we step out of our wound. Now, I really want to tell you how important this is, right? Because this has the power to change our world. Now you might go, duh, and I suppose that's a pretty obvious comment, but I really want to tell you about the subtleties of this. When I go out into the world and I try to connect, and I hate to say this, but especially with other women, I notice when their wound kicks in. There's a point that, I don't know, they're uncomfortable, or they've been activated, or they have self-doubt, or they're not sure about what they're saying, or they feel uncertain. This is not just with me, this is when I might even be in a group, but I can see it. As soon as their wound steps in, there's no connection anymore. They disappear. They lose their presence. If I wasn't aware of that, I might react to their behavior, which I actually think is what happens, right? So you're sitting in a group of women. One woman hears something from another woman that makes her feel less than, that makes her feel insecure, that makes her feel not good enough. She gets activated. Straight into her wound she goes, shuts down, withdraws, stops being present. Another woman in the group is activated by her behavior. Oh my gosh, did I say something wrong? She doesn't like me. I don't belong anymore. I'm not going to be accepted here if she doesn't like me. And so you can see how these thoughts and behaviors and emotional dynamics, they ping around. And really, it's no fun if you just want to connect. It's not harmonious. It creates more emotional bondage, not less. It creates less feelings of safety, emotional safety. If you are in that environment, you're less likely to be yourself. You're going to put your armor up. It's going to be hard for you to be authentic. This is what is normal. It's what's normal. We don't see it because so many of us are trapped in the wounded space. We're busy reacting. So you just don't see it. But when you start to break down those walls and you start to see it, you, like me, will probably think, well, that's a bit of a waste of time. It's a bit of a waste of energy. But not only that, do you know what I think? Like what I really feel in these situations, and this is being very honest, it is such an insult to the magnificence that you are. When you sit in those spaces, it is such an insult to the power and the love and the connection and the presence that you can bring to that moment. So I personally believe that it is our responsibility to understand our wound. It is our responsibility to give ourselves the space to be able to see the wound playing out and choose a different way to respond in that moment. Because this is not just about us. It's not just about my relationships. Well, certainly I'm going to start to feel a lot more empowered and at ease in my life. But it's about the world. It's about my community. It's about me not going out and making other people suffer my emotional irresponsibility. I understand that this takes courage because I've done it. I'm still growing. I'm not perfect. But I am ruthlessly, and I mean ruthlessly, honest with myself about my own behavior. I want to understand it because I don't want it to control me. I want to understand it because I want to show up in my presence, because that is the greatest gift that I can give to myself and to everyone around me. if I can create an emotionally safe space, people can show up as they are, and then they can be present in their own life. They can feel what it feels like to be present, truly present and emotionally safe. And we all start to create this incredible wave of connection between us. But it starts with us taking 100% emotional responsibility. It starts with us understanding our emotional wound. It starts with us learning how to communicate the way we feel so that we can feel connected and heard, so that we actually are expressing our authentic self rather than shutting our authentic self down. So this is my calling to you, my lovely tribe. Are you ready? Are you ready to step into a greater version of you that is not controlled by the wound, that doesn't do relationships in that paradigm? Because it truly is a paradigm that we do relationships in when we're in our wound. There are a lot of other paradigms out there. And shifting out of the wound, shifting out of that story, shifting out of that sense of separation makes so much difference. I'd love to invite you to start right now. Start right now. What you can do is watch yourself. When you're in a situation, a group of people, watch how that impacts your feelings. Sort of like have one eye looking out and the other eye looking in. As the feelings come up in your body, make a note of them. Oh, when she said that, that made me feel a little bit insecure, and I withdrew. I could feel my body restricting, coming in, withdrawing. Notice that, because that's a clue, and start to write about it, because you're an investigator now. You are investigating what it is in you that you need to free yourself from. What it is in you that can shut you down in a split second. What it is in you that has the power to destroy a relationship. What it is in you that has the power to choose a relationship that really doesn't serve you. And that brings me on to my next favorite topic. I believe every single one of us, when we're in right relationship with ourselves, has an opportunity to attract their right partner and create a right relationship with another person. Two people that are out of their wound, two people that have a fully healed heart that can sit in presence, are so incredibly powerful. I don't know about you, but I know that the choice I made for a partner when I was younger was a choice that was influenced by my wound. So I ended up settling. If I settle, then it doesn't honor either of us. So now my calling is to bring myself into right relationship with me, with my heart, with the world around me. And from that place, when or if a partner turns up, it will be a right relationship. It's dangerous to settle because you're ripping off the world of two beings that can consciously co-create in presence. That is what is naturally meant to happen to bring more harmony into this world. I don't think there's any time to waste personally. When you look at the chaos of the world, I don't think that could be a bad thing, right? But we all have to be able to get out of our wound to come into right relationship with ourselves so that we don't settle anymore. There's lots of benefits to understanding your wound. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know how you're enjoying these little conversations I'm having with you and the results, because I would be incredibly interested. Sending you love.